So exercise 14 is just more of the same. It's tracing. When you start, you do need to remember to place and link the file. So I want to show that again because that's something that's easy to forget. So you start with a new Illustrator file, and in this case we're going to name it last name first name EX14. Make sure it's inches and not pixels, and then I would actually go with landscape 8 by 10, and that way the fish is kind of more that direction. And then you go to File and you choose Place. Now the fish image has to be on your desktop and not on the server for this to work. And then you want to get that file. It's exercise 14 goldfish JPG, and you can click link, the link box and the template box, and say place. And then once again, remember when you save it, you're going to want to be sure that you click link again. So you'll click save, and then you'll also include linked files. And that way, when you send it to me, I will get the original artwork, which I want to have for pretty much everything. So as you draw, because we've chosen the template option, it's faded out that fish, and then it's also made a layer for us to draw on. So approaching this fish, there's a few different ways you could draw it. You could draw all the way around the outside edge, and then maybe put in some details. You could also draw separate parts separately. So, you know, if you wanted to do the fish's body and then add the fins after, or, you know, even draw those first, eyes and little scales and things like that, you could do that. Anything that you wanted to be a separate color, you would want to outline separately. So if I wanted the white of this tail, I would need to draw it separately from this part of the fish. So using the pen tool now, we're just going to start tracing. And remember, you're always pulling in the direction of that you're going. So if you decide that you don't like the way a line, you know, goes, just undo and draw it again. Take the fill off as you draw so it's not covering your artwork. So fill box to the top and click none. And you know, your path, you're generally going to want to have a fill or a stroke color on there so that you can see what you're drawing a little easier. Now for this part of the fin, I think I'm just going to draw those little pieces. And then remember, if you want to change the angle or the direction of your curve, you're always going to want to go in and click in the center to remove half of that handlebar. So notice I'm not drawing around that fin, I'm just drawing through it, and I'll put that fin on top. So with Illustrator, you're always doing stacked shapes. So I would fill that, but I would have this separate, the eye would be separate, this fin would be drawn separately, and I would just continue till I had all of the fish. For something like the fin, I could go in and I could just draw so that it overlapped. So I would do something like I'll deselect so I can start a new line. I'll draw this fin piece. And I'm not going to put in all those little bumps. I'll just go quickly so that it doesn't take so long. But I'm going to draw through it here because this piece will sit under the fish. So eventually I would go in and I would put a fill, and I could actually even go and undim my template so that I could sample my fish colors if I wanted. But I could put in a fill of the fish, and then I would also maybe, or do gradients perhaps, and I could put that behind. So I would send this to the back. I don't really like those colors, but so you can kind of see it doesn't really matter what the fin's doing down on this side because it's behind. And if I tried to draw it exactly even, it might be hard to match it up perfectly. So it's easier to just overdraw as you're drawing. But just continue on with this until you have all the pieces. Do double check and make sure that when you save that you have included the linked files here. So once you have all the fish drawn, you want to go in and start to put color. And there's different ways you can do it. If you want to use gradients, you could make your own gradients and use linear gradients, like on this one. And a good way to do that is to start out and, just like with the robot, make little boxes using your square shape tool, and then just simply sample colors. So you'll basically select a box, and then you'll use your little eyedropper and you'll sample a color, and you can just grab a bunch of different ones that you then want to use within a gradient. Then go in and grab each one, and you can drag it all the way across into your swatches, or it's maybe easier just to separate color here so that you can, let's show the options, so that you can go in and drag each one in. So I'll basically select and then drag. And I'm doing this so that when I go to make gradients, it's easier. Then now when I go to fill, I'll grab the part that I want the gradient on, and then I'll choose an existing gradient. Your default one that's linear is this one. I'll open up the gradient panel, and I'll get rid of the colors I don't want, and I'll move in the colors I sampled. So I'm going to go with light and medium and the darker red. And then you can kind of control which direction you want it to go. You can use this gradient tool and rotate and do all the good stuff that we've been learning with some of the previous exercises. And then remember, you can save that gradient too, so that can also be dragged in so that you have it for the next thing. Another option is to do a mesh. So this one has a really simple gradient mesh on it, and I tried that in a few areas just to see what it would look like. So with the mesh, you always start with the solid base color. Can't use a gradient, so I'll just go ahead and choose maybe a dark value of the orange for that fish, and then I'll grab my mesh tool and I'll click in there, and you can play around with just different looks and see what you like the looks of. But then you can throw color in there, and you can actually even do more than one if you wanted to. And you get some slightly different looks. So mesh tool, just remember, start with the solid, don't start with the gradient. If you start with a gradient, what happens is that it turns black on you. So you go in there and then you get that, so you lose your color. Okay, so that's it. Basically, your goal is to just finish colorizing your fish, add some nice details, little eyeballs and gills and fins and things like that, and then When you're done, go ahead and save it, and it's last name, first name, exercise 14, and then make sure that you've included the linked file.